I've done a few videos lately on workflows between Avid and Resolve. I've shown methods of properly keeping the metadata train between those two programs working correctly when trying to send to external houses for color or sound. But every time I do a video, another branch of the workflow seems to pop up that probably needs its own video. This is the world we now work in. There is no one-size-fits-all solution. Today we're going to look at another extension of this workflow. If the production uses a Tentacle Sync box in the field, how does that affect your post workflow? Now, if you don't know what a Tentacle Sync is, let me quickly explain the scenario. I'm in a pre-production conference call with the producers and the sound and the camera department. And one of the first questions that I would typically ask is, how many cameras are you planning on using? If the answer is more than one, then my next question is, how are we recording audio to these cameras? If the answer is external sound recorder, then my next question is, how are you feeding timecode to the cameras? Or how are you planning on syncing the camera's timecode? In actuality, I want to know about the timecode feed to the cameras, whether they are recording audio internally on the camera or externally. But it's even more critical if using external recorders, since you not only have to sync the cameras together, you have to sync the audio to each camera. Now, there are automated ways of syncing cameras using audio only. See, that's another video topic. But anyway, back to this video. I'm asking how they are feeding timecode to the cameras. If the answer is something like, the sound system will feed timecode to both cameras, then I can usually relax. If the answer is either a deafening silence or the words, we're going to clap our hands in front of the camera, then I start to panic. There is nothing worse than having a multicam shoot where the cameras don't have proper timecode sync between them. I know the crew all think that this idea of a camera clap is God's gift to filmmaking, but it really isn't. If it's so great, then by all means, come into my suite and you manually sync up to 4 hours of dailies every day for an 8-day shoot that you were just on. Go ahead, come on in and have at her. Look, there's a hand clap. It should be really easy to sync this up now. Well, I'll let you in on a secret. It's not. It's a pain in the butt. If you can't feed a stable timecode source to all your field cameras, then you might want to question your budget and your need for multiple cameras. In the past, I've suggested using a device called the Tentacle Sync. Now, this little box is basically a timecode generator that can be synced with other Tentacle Syncs and audio recorders. It outputs an audible timecode signal that can typically be fed into one of the camera's audio input locations. Perhaps channel 1 has the mixer feed and channel 2 has the timecode feed. Channel 2 is now used in post to sync up with other cameras and the audio recorder files themselves. Everyone shares the same timecode. Doesn't matter if the camera op starts and stops and starts and stops, the timecode remains constant. And these little boxes are really small. You can Velcro them onto the back of the camera without adding any unnecessary weight or bulk to the camera operation. They're awesome. But how do you use them in post? Well, let's take a look. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to sit on a Windows box and we will look at both Avid and Resolve's solution to Tentacle Sync, as well as Tentacle's own software solution. They have a slightly different approach that can be used on Mac boxes, and it's much closer to the old pluralized process, where the software syncs up your video and audio clips, creates a new timeline, and then creates a list that is exported and brought into the edit program of your choice. I'm not going to go down that road, as I actually think the scaled down Windows process is cleaner and is very simple. There is, however, one rather large gotcha with the Resolve technique, and we will get into that. But first, let's go inside Avid and look at your first option. Say you are cutting in Avid and will remain self-contained, and you are perfectly happy to do transcoding if you want to do transcoding inside Avid. You don't want to use any other programs. Well, Tentacle Sync couldn't be simpler to use. Okay, I've got an A cam, a B cam, and an audio bin all set up in Avid. The A cam actually did have timecode recorded to it in the field, The B-Cam, however, couldn't do that, and it needed the Tentacle Sync device to help out. And we should point out, not every one of these clips will have timecode on it. If the B camera was out shooting slow motion, for example, it's quite possible the audio recorder would have turned off the timecode at that point. But inside Avid, let's select our clips. Let's go to our clip drop down and let's go read audio timecode. We then have to know where it's coming from, and we know it was channel 2, where they put it. And we want to tell it where do we want to put it. We could pick any of our auxiliary channels. We're going to pick auxiliary timecode 1. And we're going to let Avid read the timecode. And you can see in our timecode columns what the camera recorded for its regular timecode is different than what the Tentacle Sync actually recorded for its sync timecode. And these timecodes at some point will match up with the timecodes in the A cam, or they would if I brought in the same random clips from the A camera. This is the timecode that the audio recorder is using to sync both cameras and the audio files together. So this actually did find timecode on every one of these channels. Now, in order to get this timecode to match up with the A cam, we would take the timecode on the A cam and we would duplicate it to the timecode 1 auxiliary channel. So now we can do a sync between auxiliary channels. Now we can tell by looking at this, the clips I grabbed for the A cam don't actually line up with any of the clips from the B cam. The workflow is the same if this had been 2 cameras recording the same thing at the same time. On the audio side, we also want to take the timecode that the audio recorder has and we want to duplicate that into auxiliary timecode. So everybody is going to be looking at auxiliary timecode in order for us to sync this stuff together. We can then treat this as we would normally for syncing audio in Avid. We'll take the audio files into the bin. We'll select everything and we will ask this to do an auto sync. But we will ask it to do an auto sync not based on source timecode, which is typically where it would default to. We want to do an auto sync based on auxiliary timecode. And again, we put everything to auxiliary timecode 1. So Avid's going to look down this column and do its sync based on that column. And as soon as we hit that, we very quickly, I'll just move these audio clips out. We are now presented with subclips of the B cam that will be using the audio from the audio recorder. We could then do the same thing with the A cam, and then we could sync the A cam and the B cam, or we could multicam the A cam and the B cam if we wanted to get into multicam editing. Couldn't be easier. Okay, so say you want to cut in Avid, but you want to transcode in Resolve for that whole really fast transcode thing. Let's see how Resolve handles the same task. Inside Resolve, I once again have brought all the footage I have in with the audio recordings. I can select all the camera B clips and right here tell Resolve to use timecode from the audio channel. Immediately, the timecode values are assigned to the clips. But wait, there's a gotcha. If we look at tape 78 or shot 78, let's look at the last 2 numbers in the timecode here. 4921. Let's jump over to Avid and see what tape 78 is. 4922. We are 1 frame off in Resolve. And if you want to go ahead and say, well, maybe Avid is 1 frame off, we'll see later that it's actually Resolve that is 1 frame off. This is kind of a known bug in Resolve, and unfortunately, close just won't do. 1 frame or 500 frames, it doesn't matter. It's out of sync. Now we have the option in Resolve of selecting clips after the fact and offsetting that timecode value, but you can't seem to do it in a batch process. You have to select each clip individually and manually enter the timecode for each clip. That might be okay for 5 or even 10 clips, but 8 days worth of footage? You might as well put someone in front of the camera and have them clap their hands for us. So while I give Avid a big thumbs up pass, I have to give Resolve a thumbs down fail using this workflow. But all is not lost. Remember, Tentacle Sync does have its own software to aid in the workflow. This is Tentacle software. It's called Tentacle Timecode Tool. You load your video clips into it, and it scans them for any timecode on any audio channel. In the case of our camera B, some clips have it, some clips don't. Some of the B-roll was shot at slow motion, so syncing audio wasn't really a concern. We will simply remove the clips that don't have timecode audio associated with them and get Timecode Tool to reassign all the remaining clips by transferring the timecode over to the timecode track. This does create a copy of the original camera files, with the video being a pass-through system, so no changes are done to the video, but once complete, those same video clips will magically have proper timecode on them, just like what we were hoping for way back in our original pre-production meeting. Now typically I would guard against replacing the original clips with these new versions, but since the video is a pass-through and they now have timecode on them, these new clips really should become your camera original source files. At this point, there is no need for two versions of these clips. In fact, I like Tentacle's method so much I typically go straight to it, whether I'm planning on doing transcodes in Resolve or not. Even if I'm only going to be taking these clips into Avid, the idea of having my camera originals with proper timecode on them is too enticing to pass up. And the amount of time it takes to run through this process is minimal. It makes all future use of this footage dummy-proof as well. From there, we can import these clips into Resolve, and we can now see that both this version of the clip and the clip that we did in Avid have the same timecode. No one frame offset to deal with. From there, you're doing your usual Resolve multicam setup and edit or transcode or whatever it is you want to do with the footage. There you go. Tentacle Sync workflows for Avid and Resolve, and a couple of different ways of working with these files. As always, if you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the comments section below. And if you like this or any other videos on this channel, please give them a thumbs up. It really helps me sleep at night with a true sense of accomplishment. Thanks for watching.